Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joined us today. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. We have a very interesting topic to get through. And so before we get started, just a quick introduction to myself. I'm Sharvari Joyce. I manage the Canada InfoNet pre-arrival program at the organization JVS Toronto. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get started, we will start with land acknowledgement, and there is some information about what land acknowledgement is, and because this may not be very familiar to our participants. Before I start this, could you all please, can someone just like messages on questions in the questions window and let us know that you can hear the webinar clearly? Just doing a sound check. Just let us know you can hear us and we're good to go. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And today, we are marking a very special and important day. It's the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We are acknowledging the history of residential schools across Canada. We honor the children that returned home and those that did not. The impact of residential schools is felt across decades and in all communities, and unfortunately is part of a very recent chapter in Canadian history. Recognition is a vital component of reconciliation. We encourage settlers and newcomers to Canada to take the day to learn more about the history and legacy of residential schools. Few webinar housekeeping things to remember. This is being recorded. The length is approximately an hour. All the participant lines will be muted. There is a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to send us questions through the questions window throughout the webinar, and we'll be happy to present it to our speakers today. Please take time to complete the post-webinar survey. This is how we get information about what topics, what worked for you and what did not, and we can improve our services for future programming. Recording will be shared by your employment specialist soon, and this will be posted on our blog as well. We are hosting this from home, so please do be patient with us. There may be some technical glitches or some noise in the background sometimes, which are beyond our control. So thank you so much for your patience. Quick overview on the program itself. Canada InfoNet, most of you are familiar with. It is a pre-arrival employment acceleration and mentorship program. It is a free service, a national program, 8-week program delivered by JVS Toronto with other industry partners. We've supported over 8,000 English and French-speaking immigrating professionals since 2016. We have dedicated employment specialists who support professionals arriving in the next 12 months with employment services such as employment preparation and job search tools, connection to mentors in Canada, helping you with your resume and cover letter, and then information about Canadian workplace culture and expectations for success at work. We offer industry expert webinars such as this one, online job matching platform, and access to job postings through our Magnet platform, as well as we host virtual job fairs. You also have an opportunity to learn about important essential soft skills in Canada, like customer service and business writing for Canadian workplaces. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers for today. I'll start with Yelena Zikic. She has a PhD from the University of Toronto, Rotman School of Management, and is an associate professor and graduate program director at York University, School of Human Resource Management. Her expertise centers on career transitions of diverse populations, especially skilled migrants, as well as other groups who need to cope with stress and career challenges. She also teaches at all levels, which include undergraduate, graduate, and PhD students. Currently, she is studying labor market integration of skilled migrants and cross-cultural mentoring relationships in several studies. Dr. Zikic who's a migrant herself, has significant international background and experience. Previous to York University, she was teaching and living in Italy, Spain, and the UK. Her work appeared in leading journals in the field, as well as public media outlets such as the Globe and Mail newspaper, Harvard Business Review, and CTV News. She has extensive experience with various community organizations such as JVS, TRIAC, COSTI, and Access Employment, and provides practitioner inputs and collaborates on various projects with agencies assisting migrant professions in our labor market. Welcome, Yelena. And we also have with us Monica Brennan, who is the manager of the York University Bridging Programs. For internationally educated professionals in IT and business. Before joining York University, Monica worked with the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council, or TRIAC, as the director of mentoring, and in Ireland with refugee and migrant community organizations. She has 25 years experience working in the nonprofit sector with experience focused on equality, immigrant communities, and networking organizations in Canada and Ireland. Welcome, Monica. With that, I'll hand over the floor to you, Yelena. Please start.
Thank you, Sharvari. Thank you so much for inviting me to share some of my insights and experiences working both as a researcher, but also in my job as an academic working in university. So it is really my pleasure to be able to share this and take part in JVS's webinars and the type of activities that you provide. So we'll go to the first slide. So first of all, I just wanted to mention that, you know, as you heard, I'm a migrant myself, and I wanted to congratulate all of you who are online today for being proactive about your careers in Canada and about moving here and being part of this webinar, which is an amazing opportunity that, you know, 30 years when I moved to Canada with my family, there were no such opportunities. So I'm really glad to be part of this and help you in preparing to come to Canada. So as I understand, people who are online are interested in Canadian education sector, perhaps universities specifically. One of the points that I wanted to start with is to understand that, you know, each sector is very unique. And so, you know, you may be moving with a partner who is, for example, in marketing, management, business, and you're in education. So the two people will have very different experiences, and we'll have to do research independently in terms of that specific area where you're trying to enter. So be aware that there are differences and expect them. So it's really important to manage your expectations that, you know, things will look different. And whenever you find something that's similar to your home country or to the job that you had in a university setting, let's say at home, you know, be surprised, pleasantly surprised, but expect a lot of differences. So Canadian universities are mostly public universities, so publicly funded, and as opposed to private institutions that maybe in some of your countries, you know, are highly regarded. Here, public education is sort of the way to go, and we very much value our public universities. Universities range in size, and Ontario has a large concentration of universities, both in large cities and small cities. And I just want you to be aware that Ontario, if you're, you know, moving to Ontario and trying to settle here, is a major hub for migrants. It is a global city, very welcoming city, and there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of universities, but at the same time, there are a lot of skilled migrants who come to this area, and so there's also a lot of competition in big cities. So consider also opportunities in smaller cities if that's something that may work for you outside of Toronto region or Greater Toronto region. There are lots of small cities, and many of them have a university. So they're sort of like university towns. Universities are very bureaucratic in Canada. There is a lot of layers of decision making. Different prestige is attached to different institutions, and they're often unionized settings. They may offer regulated and unregulated types of jobs. So it really depends on what type of work you're looking for if you're considering university setting as a place where you will be working. And when I say many layers of decision making, that means that, you know, if you're contacting one person, they may direct you to somebody else and so on. So just be patient and try to understand how it all works. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about academic positions in particular. So for those of you, and hopefully there are some online, who have worked in teaching, doing research in universities or educational institutions in your home country, you know, what does it look like to come to Canada and try to get back into that type of work in particular? So first of all, I want to bring a major difference in terms of education sector in Canada, and that is working in a university setting versus college setting, college level education. So we offer both. And again, both are mostly public institutions, sorry. However, college level education is considered somewhat of a very specific type of education that you want. So for example, if you wanted to become a dental assistant, a chef, or, you know, something that's very specific, sometimes hands-on, sometimes it's an occupation that you know, you need specific training for, exposure, etc. While university education is, you know, your classic bachelor level degree, and then you may go to specific schools within universities, such as School of Engineering, School of Medicine, etc. Again, both of these institutions will offer positions that are related to teaching or research. But one of the major differences, and we don't have a lot of time, you know, to elaborate on other differences, but one of the main ones is that to teach at a college level, you don't need necessarily a PhD level degree or a doctorate. The same can happen in university if you wish to teach as a sessional instructor or teaching stream faculty. But sessional instructor is somebody who comes in and just does a specific course. Maybe it's a night course. Sometimes we call this type of education also continuing education, where people who've already done their degrees and have jobs come back for specific courses. And so this idea of sessional instructor is something that you may want to consider if getting back into teaching is what you aspire. Now, if you are 100% academic, meaning that you've been doing a lot of research and, you know, most of your career teaching and researching, then you're looking at a very competitive market, unfortunately, and it always depends on the area of study. So in Canada, those types of positions are considered tenure track positions. Tenure is a pathway to a permanency in university, so to a permanent job. There are levels in academia as professors. So we start at the assistant level. We have 6 years to gain a status of an associate professor, which is mainly based on publications and publication records. So most positions that are advertised are at the assistant level. It's much harder to enter as an associate. And then we move on to full professorship once we're in university. So the positions that are advertised are often starting level assistant, highly competitive, and really based on previous type of research that you've done in publications. And again, each area of study is different. But we'll offer at the end of our presentation, after my colleague Monica presents, we have a whole slide of links and websites to where you can see some of the jobs and how they're advertised in academia. So, you know, the great part about my job and others who are teaching and doing research is that it's maybe the only job for life once you get tenure. So once you're past that assistant to associate, it's a very permanent type of position in university. Now, I really want to highlight that opportunities vary depending on the area. So if you wish to continue doing research, but not necessarily teach, and you feel that your skills and your passion are, based in the type of research that you do, then you may want to look into specific research teams or projects that are going on in universities where you may be able to join as a researcher. So in other words, you will not have students, but you will work in a lab setting if it's science or medicine related. Specifically in science and medicine, there are many research opportunities. I mean, when I say many, I'm not saying, you arrive tomorrow and the day after you'll be able to work in a lab. It's still competitive, and most importantly, you have to find the right match. So if you've done certain type of research in your home country, look for those individuals. Maybe in your research, you've come across Canadian scholars who are in that area. Search for them, connect to them, so they will know best what you've done back home. So you will be joining a team of people that are already working, have funding, they write grants, they get funding usually, from different sources within the government, because again, it's public sector, right? To conduct research on specific topic areas. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So I'm speaking really fast, but hopefully it's making sense for those of you who are looking for academic positions. In the next few slides, I'll go over some of the tips that I've learned from my own research. And as Sharvari mentioned, for the past 10 to 15 years, most of my time has been dedicated to studying individuals like yourself and like myself or my parents, who are skilled migrants looking to come into Canada or are here already, and looking at their careers and challenges and ways that they can prosper in the new labor market. So from this experience, what do you need, in my research, what do you need to succeed? And in this slide, I sort of summarize some of the main points. So one very important truth, often and difficult one to understand for any migrant, skilled migrant, is that your attitude and your understanding that some downshifting in your career is usually a fact. So this will happen to you, at least for some period of time. You may not be able to get the same level and the same type of job as you had back home. So personal attitude, downshifting is unfortunately common, at least at the beginning of your transition. Be aware of that. So manage your expectations upon arrival. Expectations, believe it or not, in psychology are super important in terms of how successful and how satisfied and how we do in general in well-being. So manage your expectations. I'll talk a little bit about this later, but networking is huge. Connecting to local professionals is exactly what will help you to get into jobs in education. Just like in any sector, a lot of times, and in many countries, not just in North America or Canada, but I'm sure in your home country too, a lot of jobs, some research says that 60 to 70% of jobs are obtained through networks and through knowing people and individuals in those positions. So really keep that in mind. I know it may not be the most welcome news. You're new to the country and now you need to get to know people, but that's the reality. Create support network. So, you may be coming with family, with a partner, maybe you're coming alone. Seek social support. We know from a lot of research that this is really the key component of well-being in Canada, having social support, both at home, but also professionally. Be proactive. That's another big message. So I just had a study published on this idea of career self-management and how important that is in Canada and in North America in particular. In other words, the expectation is that you will have to be the main sort of actor in your own career, in your transition in Canada. So not having expectations that anybody else will, come along, or an organization, or maybe a settlement sector agency, like JVS, that they will help you all the way through. They may help you in the first few steps, but it's really up to you to conduct research and to be proactive and take action in your career. Now, Monica will talk about specific programs and things that already exist you may be aware of or may not, but there are some really amazing supports in the labor market already for you, such as bridging programs, internships, mentoring. I strongly advise that you really look into these, and you're already here on this webinar, which means you're proactive, and so you already get a point for that, and you probably know about some of these other programs, but do take action and involve yourself in these opportunities. I mean, really leverage on what's offered. But again, that's not going to solve all of the questions and issues, and it's not going to get you a job immediately. A lot of it is up to you. And finally, strong communication skills. I cannot overemphasize this point. You're all, I'm sure, fluent in English, but sometimes we think we're better in a local language than we are. There is no, nothing wrong with you taking additional language courses. And if anything, you can even do this online in some way. But I would highly advise you to really examine, self-explore your skills and see whether you need additional support in language and some type of communication skills. You can go to the next slide. So I have a couple of more minutes, and I just wanted to summarize some of this that I talked in the previous slide, and sort of conclude with some lessons or advice from me. So one of the things that I studied for many years with migrants is something called career and self-exploration. And what we learned is that in addition to all the research that we've just talked about that you need to do about, education sector and so on, you also need to self-explore. In other words, you need to understand both the environment, but also your own preferences. And sometimes, as obvious as it may seem, we forget to ask ourselves, what is it that I really enjoy? So the question that I have for you, and I really hope that you will look and think about this, is identify what you most enjoy about your work at the moment if you're working in your home country. In general, in your career up to now, what is it that you like most, that gives you satisfaction, that makes you go to work in the morning? And so that is something that you want to make sure you find in your work in Canada. In other words, that is one thing that you don't want to give up when you come to Canada. So for example, I'm just going to give you quickly an example. If you worked with students, staff, faculty at a university, at some kind of institution, educational institution in the past, but you know that what really gives you satisfaction is working with students, then maybe that's the part that you want to look for in Canada. And one job that, for example, will satisfy that need is somebody called student advisor. We have a lot of student advisors in university. They work in each academic department. They provide advice in terms of available courses, career options for students. And I have a link in my slides where this particular job is explained and what's required and so on. And you may actually consult this particular website. Settlement.org has a lot of useful information. But this is just an example of finding out that key part of what makes you satisfied at work back home, and understanding that that's what you want to make sure you have in Canada. Because there's so many dimensions of our work, how much time I spend with my kids, how does it affect my life at home? If you want good work-life balance, then make sure you understand what are the hours that you need to work. Maybe you want to work part-time, maybe some kind of a seasonal job, maybe as a sessional instructor, you only want to teach in the summer, something like that, okay? Maybe it's research. I really don't want to deal with people. I just want to do my scientific research in a lab. Then that's what you're going to look for. Next slide. And just a few tips before I conclude. I have another 2 minutes around networking in particular. So as I said to you, 60 to 70% of jobs are found through people, relationships, network. So your first kind of job is what you're doing at the moment, finding out about your sector through your own research, web tools, whatever is available to you from your home country, which is great that you're being proactive in doing things while you're still at home. Most people don't do that. Most people start searching when they're here. So you start early, that's great. Now, once you understand what's out there, what positions are available, who is the person that you need to contact? You may find this out from the actual institution or LinkedIn, great resource. There you see their background, where they studied, who they are, right? We're all there. That will give you more information about the people that are working in the particular sector or institution. And then tips for contacting. Be able to share who you are, but briefly. You know, I get LinkedIn connections all the time, and sometimes they're really long, and I don't understand, what the person's looking for. Sorry. So really be concise. Who you are and what can you provide to the employer? That's key. Ask for a short information meeting. Okay, very short, Zoom chat or whatever you're using. Have your questions ready. Be prepared. We don't have a lot of time. Nobody has time these days. So respect the time and this kind of networking etiquette. Be ready for the meeting, be concise, and know exactly what you want to ask. And understand that networking is a two-way process. You may be able to share something that the person needs in the future. So nurture those relationships, maintain them. Don't forget to keep in touch with certain people. So we could do a whole webinar on networking, but I'm just going to go to the next slide and conclude with the 3 final tips from my side. In-depth research of the labor market and educational sector, which is what you're doing already. Explore available options in Canada pre-arrival. You're kind of on that path. Proactive search when you arrive here. Visit people. Get into degree accreditation. Monica will talk about an organization that will help you with that. Visit local institution. Get to know, even physically, how places look like. And continue to do networking. That is something you could start doing now. Maybe you're doing it already. Mentoring programs, similar, get in touch with people that are relevant for your particular area and continuously network, continue to meet people, and eventually those job offers will arrive. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for that, Yelena. That was a lot of good information packed in 20 minutes. So thank you for sharing. Monica, I'll invite you to continue this presentation.
Welcome, everyone. I found Yelena's presentation so useful as an introduction to what I'll be speaking about. I'm going to speak, I am the manager of the Internationally Educated Professionals Bridging Programs here at York University. So I'm going to speak a bit about our bridging programs, just to give you a sense of the landscape of the type of supports that are available here in Canada when you're looking to transition into employment here. And then I'm going to talk a bit about just the basics of how to find a job, for example, at York University, so that you'll have a little of understanding of the practicality of how we hire here at York University. And I'll try and give you a few tips as well along the way. So probably you're not familiar with bridge programs, even though they're quite common here in Canada. And really, they were created as the idea of helping immigrants who have arrived to bridge back to success in their professional field after they've arrived in Canada. And so really it looks, the programs look at how they can assess a newcomer's skills, but help them gain targeted training that looks at what some of the challenges they may have integrating into the labor market are, and how we can target some training at it to help them succeed faster and at better levels in the job market. I've included in the handout in here the link to all the bridge programs in Ontario. So this will give you a link to other bridge programs run at other colleges, universities, and in the community sector as well. We're only one of many organizations that offer this service. So as I mentioned, the programs are really aimed and targeted at how to help newcomers overcome some of the hurdles to success after they've arrived in Canada. You want to make sure, Yelena talked about sort of making sure that you're identifying what some of your challenges may be and starting to develop proactive strategies and connecting with proactive programs that will help you overcome some of those challenges. So of course, gaining local knowledge, and that's local knowledge as Yelena spoke about researching your field, but it's also local knowledge about understanding how hiring practices happen in Canada and happen in the particular institutions or sector that you want to apply to. What are the hiring processes like? What are the interview practices like? How can you succeed at marketing yourself within those practices? How do Canadians communicate in hiring context? What are hiring managers looking for in terms of key skills? What is it about your background that will help you get the edge when you're marketing it in Canada? So thinking about those kind of things. Also thinking about how to develop your soft skills. So employers here in Canada talk a lot about soft skills. For example, things that are included in that are cultural competence, so understanding how people manage organizations, staff and departments within the Canadian context. And every country has its own culture and way in which it commonly people relate within a workplace. And so learning a bit about that culture in Canada helps you succeed better in hiring processes and also after you settle into employment. It also relates to your communication competencies. So you may speak English very well, but do you understand the local vernacular in terms of the way people talk about job titles or the way people speak in your sector in Canada? And also thinking about how you're going to build your social capital. So it's very important that, as Yelena spoke about, that once you arrive in Canada, right off the bat, you're trying to grow the amount of people that you know in your profession locally, so that you can find out about jobs, you can find out about organizations that you could apply to, and you can also sort of gain insights into how best to target your skill sets and your job search. So our program really looks at those challenges and tries to create some sort of one-stop hub where you can really get some supports in relation to that. And we work on improving your language skills within your occupation, supporting you to develop your soft skills, and then also helping you look at some hard skills and also local knowledge in relation to your professional field and how you can gain that. Because of course, for example, if you're an accountant in one country, there are different accounting practices here in Canada, and you would need to get to know those. And that's transferable. In some industries, it's regulated, but in other industries, these are things you need to know to be able to understand the industry and how it works. So we run two programs at York University. One of them is called our IP Foundation program. And that program's open to people of whatever your professional background is. Our expertise generally is in business and IT, but we have people who've joined over the last couple of years who come from an educational sector background. Really what that is it's a short program. You enter the university in August, you complete the program in December, and then you have the option to continue for one further term if you wish. It focuses on just providing people with targeted support around their communication and English language skills to succeed in the workplace. It then offers newcomers access to our foundation courses, which really focus on strengthening people's understanding of management in Canada, business law, again, communication skills, or if you're in IT programming skills. And then it provides wraparound services that relate to drop-in language support that's responsive to language challenges that you're facing during your job search. And this program has been designed to be free to you for that first term that you enter. So you get to take 2 university courses, gain language support, free professional career coaching, so helping you think about your brand, improve your resume, LinkedIn for your local market, and developing your interview skills here in Canada. All of that's free as part of the program, and then you have an option if you wish to stay as a visiting student at the university for 1 academic term and take a course in your professional field that might help you specifically gain some knowledge of your professional field. This is an example of one of our foundation courses, Professional Communication in the Canadian Context, and it polishes your skills in terms of being able to write and present within the Canadian workplace. We also run certificate programs. We run 2 certificates, the professional certificate for internationally educated professionals in IT and one for internationally educated professionals in Canadian business. Each of these programs have streams, and I'll explain about that a bit more. This is a longer program. It's 8 courses, which generally people take over 2 years, 1.5 years, 2 years. And this program includes what you would get in the foundation. So what we call our foundation courses. You do 3 of those key foundation courses in our program, and then you take 5 courses as part of the university. These are undergraduate courses, generally in the last year of undergraduate studies, that are focused on your professional field. And through this, for example, people who are accountants who are coming to Canada are able to take accredited courses that would support them to be able to get their CPA in Ontario. And people also get to take courses that either upskill themselves in their professional area, give them some new knowledge, but also really help them gain the foundation in the Canadian context. Of course, you also get to access the university environment, and that gives you a better understanding also of how educational institutions work in Canada. Similar to the other program, part-time evening study, so you can still look for full-time work or work during the day and take the program. And we have wraparound supports in terms of your language and in terms of helping you navigate your career. For both of these programs, we run a lot of events and activities. This program has a bursary to help people to be able to cover most of the costs of the program. Up until now, that bursary has been funded by the Ontario government, and that really helps people to be able to learn to be able to access this program, even if they're financially challenged when arriving in Canada. This program, our first program, we will be doing an intake next spring, and students will be able to start as new candidates in the foundation program next August. So if you're interested in this and you arrive in Canada in spring, make sure to reach out to us. This program, we're just waiting for an announcement from the government regarding funding for the program and bursaries. We hope to make an announcement sometime in the next few months and do an intake at the start of 2022. We are waiting on that news, and so we're encouraging people to sign up to our mailing list on our website, and then they'll be notified when we are taking it. This gives you a bit of an overview of what I talked about: 3 foundation courses that you would be taking and 5 specialized courses, and language supports and career supports. The streams that we do in our certificate program, these are the business streams. So we support specifically in the certificate program people who have backgrounds in accounting, finance, management, marketing, and public administration. Our management stream can be open to people who have management backgrounds in different professional areas. And so that is how some people also enter the Canadian Business Certificate. If they maybe have worked in the academic context as a manager, they can also access the management stream of this program. Our IT program offers people an ability to specialize in some key streams such as enterprise systems, systems analysis, and big data. As I mentioned before, alongside the program, we run a lot of events specifically for internationally educated professionals to help you start networking with employers. And we also promote out to you an array of activities that are happening within Toronto and your community that can help you gain access to things like mentoring, internships, and networking opportunities. And as Yelena said, I can't echo it enough. We find that the people who succeed the fastest are people who access mentoring programs, who access networking, and who proactively engage in activities that help them gain profile and contacts within the professional area. These are just some of our partners who work with us. Yelena had mentioned internship programs. I didn't provide a link before, but there is an internship program that's a paid internship program for newcomers to Ontario. It's called Career Edge. You can search it. And it provides paid internships to newcomers in companies for a period of time. And that's, again, a good program. There's also the federal internship program for newcomers, which is an internship run by the government to support newcomers in getting jobs within the professional sector. I mentioned before, there are loans and bursaries available to people wanting to do programs like this. You can find out more on our website. We'll provide you with the link to that later. And if you want to learn more about the experiences newcomers, have a look at some of the success stories on our website or watch some of the videos that we have available on our website. I've included a link to an episode that was done by the New Canadians Omni TV program on the program, and it gives you a sense to hear the stories of other newcomers and what journeys they've taken. And I've met, through our program, we've supported hundreds of newcomers. I've met so many people. Each person's journey is unique, and it's interesting to watch how they have navigated their success, and you can learn a bit about that by looking at some of these success stories. And you can also read some of the things that newcomers have said about what our program has really helped them and how it's helped them to succeed in Canada. So just a few things. Each program will have requirements when you're entering it. You are required generally when you're going into a bridge program in Ontario to already have a university degree from your home country and to have some previous professional experience before arriving. Things that will help you quicken the process to be able both to find employment and also succeed in entering some of these programs is to make sure that you bring with you certified copies of your degrees, your transcripts. If they're not in English, having translations of these degrees and transcripts with you. There is credential assessment, and most of you may know about that through the immigration process. But for example, one organization called World Education Services here in Canada will assess your degree from abroad and provide a translation or an explanation of the value of your degree within Canada. So someone asked in the chat, is my 3-year degree equivalent? What this will do is create an analysis of your degrees and your grades so that Canadian employers and universities can understand what it's equivalent to within the Canadian context. We also encourage you to make sure that you have professional references available. So you can still use references from home. You do want to start developing new references as well when you arrive in Canada, but make sure you've spoken to people before you leave about them being willing to be professional references for you if you get job opportunities in Canada so that you can reach out to them. And you may want to try and identify as well people who have English language skills who will be able to undertake interviews with people in Canada. Programs also generally require, while we support people's language skills, bridge programs tend to support people who have a certain level of English, who are what we would call work ready, job ready, which in Canada is generally Canadian language benchmark 7 and 8. And so what we do is really help you hone those language skills, develop your communication competencies, but there also are a lot of language and support programs in Canada that will help you get to that language benchmark. Here's a link to an online language assessment, which might help you to be able to identify what level of the Canadian language benchmark you are on now. When you arrive, those services are free to newcomers, so you would be able to do a language test, the Canadian language benchmark test, for free after you arrive in Canada. So that's our bridge program and some of the supports we offer. If you go to our website, you'll learn a lot more. I also just briefly wanted to talk about how do you look for a job at York University, because obviously a lot of you are interested not just in looking for academic jobs, but also looking for other positions. And the university sector, like hospital sector and other sectors, offer a huge array of different opportunities within them to apply for employment, and often offer good pathways to, permanent employment, good working conditions, and maybe a great place for you to be able to start a career in Canada. So Yelena spoke a bit about different types of academic opportunities. There also are opportunities as being staff with non-academic staff within the university, and there are thousands of roles within the university that support different departments. We have lots of people who work in finance within the university, a lot of administrative and management roles within the university. There are roles in departments that are working directly with students, and also providing services at the university. So if you have a background in project management, program coordination, management, administration, finance, and even in fields such as, security, maintenance, there are lots of different roles across a university. As well as permanent or longer term contract positions, most universities and colleges also have inbuilt temporary agencies. So they can also be a place where, even if you're not intending to work forever within them, you may be able to get some Canadian professional experience working through their temp agency. And if you are looking at getting jobs within Canadian universities and colleges, sometimes it's great to enter through the temporary agencies, because it gets you some short-term experience where you get to develop some of the competencies, understand how the university works, maybe learn some of the university systems. So then if you're later applying to some of the more permanent staff opportunities, you're able to show them that you know the university, that you know some of its systems, and that you've already begun to get work within the university, and it might give you a leg up when you're competing against other people within those hiring processes. So most universities and larger institutions in Canada have what they call ATS, application tracking systems. They are formalized application processes and HR processes to apply for positions. York University has an external career portal that you can look at, yorku.ca/jobs, and there you can view the jobs available at the university, but you can also set up job alerts. So we've provided some links at the end, and I would also recommend, if you identify institutions you want to get jobs, very proactive way for you to do it now is you set up job alerts so that you're getting notified if jobs in your professional area become available at those institutions and you can apply to them. First, I would suggest that you go and look at the websites and gain an understanding of the types of positions that might match your skill set. The university website and many public sector websites that are hiring usually also have additional information to support you in using those tools. And so here at York, we have a page that has different resources for external candidates who are applying to the university to give you some help in terms of navigating the ATS system, and also tips on and a better understanding of the hiring process. And they even have like an online learning module to help you understand how to apply for jobs at the university. So it's always good to understand the hiring process. It'll help you succeed better in it. So I really recommend you look at those resources and you think a bit about each step of the process and how you can succeed well in it. Usually you create a profile of yourself within those, and then you're applying to individual jobs. So you have to also, while you've created a profile, select certain jobs and place applications to those jobs and write unique cover letters for each position that you're applying for. It's very important that you do that, customize your resume and your cover letter to the position you're applying to, because you have to remember in large institutions, we get hundreds of applications for each position. And so you want to explain to people what are the skills that you see are transferable to the position you're applying to, why you're a good candidate, what your passion is. I'm passionate about working in the university sector, and understanding why you're applying to that. So you're connecting with the person who's reviewing that resume, and they can see you as somebody to invite. You will then be able to watch your application tracked, and if you also should find on some of these sites tips on how to succeed within the interview process. We'll talk a bit later about formalized processes, but I noticed some of the questions that came in. Usually hiring processes are formal. You go through a pool. The pool of candidates is assessed against the criteria that's been set in the job. They're graded against that criteria. When they're selected, they're invited to interviews. Interviews are formalized. We agree a panel of people who will interview you. We have a panel of questions that are formally asked. People take notes in those interviews to make sure that when people are graded in the interview, they're fairly graded in the interview. So each person who's interviewing is asked the same questions, given the same opportunities to succeed in the interview process, and assessed independently by each candidate and then scored. So you will find the interview process formal. You may be asked to do a presentation as part of that, or take some skill tests to show that the skills that you've said that you have in terms of IT systems, for example, you do have. So when you're looking at jobs in York University, you'll see that we have different associations. We have the University Staff Association, which is many of the roles, non-management roles, and these are unionized positions within the university. It includes full-time and part-time, and we also have a professional managerial employees association, and these are non-unionized roles, but they are part of a voluntary association within the university. And the CPMEA roles tend to be higher management roles, but there are management opportunities across both of these sets of roles. So you'll want to have a look at the positions there. We also have a temporary agency called Utah, and as you can see, you could get opportunities that relate to things like finance roles, customer service roles, student support roles. So it's a good place for you to look. I think I've mentioned most of these points in my discussion, but again, in unionized hiring processes, but also in the public sector in general, often jobs will show you exactly the description of the role. They'll show you the skill set that is required for the role, and they will show you what they would call a salary scale, which is a set scale in which they can only hire within that certain salary scale for that position. And when you're negotiating and entering that position, it's very important that you look at what step in that salary scale you start on, because of course then you're moving up once a year after that. And so you want to make sure that you're targeting and knowing what salary you think you should be asking for if you do get an opportunity to negotiate an offer. And those are things that you can learn through networking with people who are working in the field and understanding the roles that they're in. So here are some links we just provided for you to be able to connect to some of the services we talked about, some job boards that are available for looking at jobs, some links to help you identify different colleges and universities, and some information on York's profile and our program and other programs available to you. So I'm sorry I took a little bit more time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have as well.
Thank you so much, Monica. Appreciate that. Just to let the participants know that we've already shared all of these links as a handout. Please feel free to download them. There's a lot of good, useful resources here. And with that, I'd like to start the Q&A session. There's a lot of interesting questions that we need to get through. we may go over slightly by a few minutes. I hope that's okay for both of you, Monica and Yelena, just by a few minutes. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So one of the questions that we just received during the webinar was the participant wants to know that, so there's multiple questions here, but this may be something that you can help address. I have an account in Job Bank, but for the last 1 year, I've realized that all the job postings are mainly for assistant professor level. I work as a tenured assistant professor in the organizational behavior and human resource management in India and would like a similar position in Canada. Are associate professor positions rare, or is it that they are not announced in this manner?
Yes, I can address that. I mentioned it in the presentation. They're very rare, very rare. Universities don't hire more senior people. They prefer to start from the very junior level. So it would be very challenging for you. And again, organizational behavior just happens to be my area. Very few jobs. It really depends on your research record. So whether your publications are up to par and in journals where local academics publish.
Yeah, so that was the next question, actually.
You may have to be thinking about teaching-oriented position, sessional instructor. So really, not doing research, but focusing on teaching different courses that are available and that may need more people in different places.
And if I could add, we actually had a student that was with a similar background who entered our program and ended up using those transferable skills and knowledge to begin to work as a manager or within a HR department within a company. So you might also, I think, of course, you want to go back and do exactly what you're doing, but you also have some transferable knowledge and skills there that could be useful as a manager within human resources departments. Within organizations as well.
And I just want to add for this question, again, it's a matter of understanding what part of your job as an academic gave you most satisfaction. What about working in a university in India in this area was most satisfying, and how can you transfer that and find something that matches?
Exactly. Those are great insights. Are there any specific journal lists that are followed in the universities for promotion or confirming tenure?
Absolutely. Depending on the area. So I can only speak to those who may look for work in business school environment, management departments, work psychology, that's kind of my area. Human resource management is the name of my department. We usually follow Financial Times list as the kind of big picture indicator. Now, every university, in order to grant tenure, may focus on a different set of journals. But if you look at the Financial Times journal list, that will give you a basic sense in terms of management. Now, there's Australian list, there's lots of other ways to understand where your publications rank, and it's best to contact and look at publication record of someone who is a similar area as you and is in a Canadian university.
Yeah. Thank you. I have in the same lines, there's one more question. This participant says, thanks for such relevant and excellent presentations to both Yelena and Monica. They have a PhD and they're arriving in December 2021. And they want to know if postdoc is the route to tenure. And do you see PhDs taking bridging programs? That's probably for Monica.
Yeah, we have many people in our programs that have masters and PhDs. So I think it's complicated. Some people come to us, and if they have, if they want to go on and do a PhD or a master's, from a master's to a PhD or looking into programs, they can do that. But if they want to connect with a job in the market, a lot of people do still do bridging programs, even though they're undergraduate level, because they're just taking some courses that help them focus on getting that local knowledge and experience. It doesn't undervalue what you already have. You're marketing yourself as someone who has a master's degree in MBA, but you're also showing that you gain some knowledge of the Canadian context of your profession. I'd say about 40 to 50% of the people in my program have master's degrees.
Yeah. Anything
And
you would like to
Sharvari,
add?
there was first part of that question that I think was related to my area.
Yes,
but
that's right. Is postdoc the route to tenure is what they wanted to know.
Okay. I mean, postdoc positions are great if you apply and can obtain them. They help you to do more research, to publish, to work with another academic closely. To get tenure, you are evaluated on 3 components: teaching, research, and service. And then again, depends on each department and university as to, you know, what is a solid teaching record versus research, etc. So postdocs are like little, you know, push to get you to improve your record, but you need to obtain a tenure track position in order to be competitive for tenure.
Thank you. That's very relevant. So I have some more questions from sort of people who are traditionally not from the education sector and may not be from academic positions. So, like, how do they show that they're interested in these roles? And you know, do you have any tips for people applying from traditionally not the education sector, coming in from, like, this could be for some of the positions we talked about, like finance, marketing, project management, it could be anything. Do you see that there is in the hiring process, it's preferred that they have an education background, or is it okay that people come in from other sectors as well?
Well, I think that all sectors always, you know, obviously people, if you have a track record in the sector, then you're able to show that. But lots of people enter into the university sector having worked in the private sector before, or other parts of the public sector. So I don't think that means you cannot get a job in the university if you've never worked in that. I worked in the nonprofit sector, but was able to transition into the university sector. And there are a lot of people in finance and project management roles that are bringing that kind of expertise. So I think if you have the skills that people are looking for, then I think that you will be able to still be able to make a case and succeed at getting hired. We've had a number of students who didn't have backgrounds in the education or hospital sectors, but were hired in those sectors based on their IT or finance skills. So I think you may need to be able to communicate why you're interested in working in the public or university sector. So if you think that's a concern, try and answer that in your cover letter, why you have an interest in the educational sector.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard question to answer, not knowing, you know, which area you're thinking of, because there may be jobs in HR in a university department that, you know, works with, that is HR focused. So if your background is HR, there is a department that doesn't know teaching or anything. They just manage us, you know, as a resource. Same thing with people who work in maintenance of the university or in IT group. We have a huge IT group within the university. There again, it's skill based. So if you have those particular IT skills that are relevant for university setting, I think you would be compatible.
Yeah, and I know from the management group that I work with, a number of them, of course, have worked in university sector their whole lives, but there are many people within that managerial pool who are also new, who are coming from other sectors.
Great, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. There's some questions on networking, and Yelena and both Yelena and Monica, you touched upon this topic. So, I mean, if you could just go a little deeper into it and just talk about how some of the ways people can build connections. Some maybe you know, where are these opportunities that they can look for, and you know, some more ideas into that will be awesome.
I put a link on the slide to some of the national mentoring programs. So within Canada, there are a number of professional immigrant mentoring programs. So people can enter those programs and over a period of time be connected with a mentor from their professional field. We really recommend you try and make networks and mentors with people who have similar professional backgrounds as you. And so those programs are actually established so that you can connect very directly with them. JVS actually is a partner for the Mentoring Partnership in Toronto and can support you in entering that program. But there also are a lot of settlement and employment agencies that run speed mentoring, one-day networking sessions, other networking events and activities that you can connect with, which are specifically designed to support newcomers to network and mentor. And then, of course, in different communities and different contexts, you can also connect with, there are a lot of different networking, 10,000 Coffees is one where you can just connect with anyone online who happens to have your professional background. So there are also general networking. And then, of course, volunteering, I didn't mention it, but it's a very valuable way of meeting professionals as well. So volunteering for a Canadian organization, and through doing that, getting to meet people perhaps with your professional area. Yelena, I'm sure you have some tips. This is your...
Yeah, so obviously what you said, definitely use all the existing programs and resources, and sign up for a variety, because not all of them will work out for you. You know, somewhere you may be matched with a person that's, you know, really helpful, and in other times it just may not be a good match.
And Yelena, it's not about just meeting different people. There's a lot of background work that needs to go before a networking, right? Like the intent needs to be there and it needs to be strategic. So that's the part that, you know, we also had to we try and, tell our program participants over and over again. It's not just about meeting people.
Absolutely. And, you know, think of yourself. If you're getting messages on LinkedIn from people around the world, I mean, what's one message that will actually motivate you to respond and respond in detail and think through? So it's about the way that you approach people, being very considerate in terms of their time and respectful, but also having a clear idea of why are you contacting that person. You know, what is it exactly? What kind of information are you looking for? And the clearer you are in that first message, I think the better chances of getting a response. The same thing with emails, or, you know, contacting people by phone, whichever way. Your research prior to actual contact is the most important part. So, you know, is that person most critical for the type of position that I'm looking for? And maybe you'll need to contact 5 different people and they'll, you know, direct you through the system. So be patient, really respect their time, and be certain that you have done your homework and your job in doing that research prior. And in checking your message, you know, I check my emails 3 times before I send them. Make sure there's no too much text, too much detail. We don't have time. We don't care. Tell me why. How can I help you? How can you help me as well? So it's a two-way process.
Absolutely, lots of good information there. Before I wrap it up, there was one question on sort of the future of the sector and where is the sector going, because it is going through a transition. You know, all of our, in fact, even the nonprofit sector, there's just a lot of transition that's going on. We're looking at more hybrid programming. There's a lot of online focus. So is there any insights that you can share, some skills that people can build on, can kind of start planning towards? That would be great if you could wrap it up with that.
Absolutely. I mean, anything that has to do with what we're doing right now, essentially communicating, teaching, doing work online, virtually. So really IT skills, understanding all the programs that are out there. Hybrid education, I think, will become really big. We have a lot of students who don't want to come back to the classroom. And it has nothing to do with COVID. In most cases, it's just convenience. So, and the skills that you need are communication as well as sort of IT skills. Communication skills never go out of fashion.
Absolutely.
They're always sexy.
Yeah, it just has to be adapted to different sort of scenarios. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Monica, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, even when we're talking to employers now. Some other things maybe are mindset things that are really becoming important to communicate to when you're applying for work. So the ability to pivot, be flexible, be able to learn new things, being able to adapt to change. Of course, as newcomers, you can talk about how newcomers are adapting to a lot of change, and that's a skill set. You know, you've arrived in a country and been able to navigate it. You're open to change and you welcome that. So being able to communicate how you're somebody who is able to perform well within a changing environment is also a very good thing to communicate, because of course, everything's changing all the time, and employers really want people who they know are willing to grow and to have that kind of open mindset and a commitment to continuing professional development.
Absolutely, and even collaborating in these sort of online teams now, virtual teams, right? Like we have to figure out new ways to kind of stay connected with each other. So there's a lot of new skills to pick up there. And thank you so much, both Monica, Yelena. This was so insightful because we get a lot of participants in the program who are kind of their background is in the education sector, their passion is in getting into the education sector, but it is also one of the more challenging sort of sectors to get into, especially the academic roles. So the more information they have at their hands, they can be better prepared. So we really appreciate all the insights you shared, and that's the kind of feedback I'm getting as well from participants. Thank you so much, and thank you to all the participants as well. I hope you found it this webinar very insightful. Please feel free to share any other questions with your employment specialist. We are happy to support you through this process, through this journey. And there's a lot of resources that were shared. Please do download and utilize them. And thank you so much for a wonderful webinar today.
Thank you, Sharvari, and thanks to JVS.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck to everyone.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.